Dante Moretti had not stopped moving in 11 years. From the moment he had taken over the family at the age of 27, he had kept his feet in constant motion, his mind 3 steps ahead, his face arranged in the careful stillness that people around him had learned to read as a warning. He was not a man who paused. He was not a man who hesitated. And he was absolutely not a man who let anything or anyone catch him off guard on the corner of 5th and Meridian at 11:15 on a Tuesday night. The child came out of nowhere. He heard her first. A ragged, high-pitched wail cutting through the low traffic noise of the street. Then he felt it, small fingers wrapping around his wrist, gripping with a strength that seemed impossible for the size of the hand attached to them. He stopped. Dante Moretti, 6 feet and 4 inches of barely contained power, with tattoo ink running from the base of his jaw down both forearms and across the backs of both hands, stopped dead on the sidewalk and looked down. She was tiny. 5 years old, maybe. Her dark curls were wild around her face, half pulled from 2 uneven pigtails someone had tried to put in neatly and not quite managed. Her skin was a deep, warm brown and her eyes were enormous, luminous amber, currently flooding with tears. She was wearing a yellow raincoat 2 sizes too large for her and 1 shoe. She was looking directly up at him without any trace of fear. "Please," she said. Her voice was very steady for someone crying that hard. "They're beating my mom. Please. She keeps saying it's okay but it's not okay. Please." Dante looked at her for 3 full seconds. His driver, Marco, had already pulled up beside him. Nico, his right-hand man, was 3 steps behind him on the sidewalk. Neither of them said a word. "Where?" Dante said. It was not a question. The little girl pointed. Up the block, past the laundromat, past the closed flower stand. A brick building with a green awning, 4 stories, lights on in the 2nd floor window. "What is your name?" Dante said. "Cora." "Cora. How did you get outside?" "The window in the hallway. There's a fire escape. Mom doesn't know I went out. She told me to stay in the bedroom but I could hear her and I heard her fall and she stopped making sounds for a minute and I got scared." Something shifted in Dante's chest. It was not a comfortable feeling. He had been 7 years old when he heard his own mother go quiet. He knew exactly what that silence meant in the body of a child. He knew the particular terror of it, the way it hollowed out your ribs and left nothing but cold air inside. He crouched down to Cora's level. This close he could see a small scratch on her chin, probably from the fire escape ladder. "Who is hurting your mother?" he said quietly. "Victor," she said, and her small face pulled tight with a feeling that was startling to see on someone her age. "He's not my dad. Mom said he was leaving but he won't leave." Dante straightened. He looked at Nico. "Stay with her," he said. He walked up the block at a pace that was not quite running but covered ground faster than most men could manage at a sprint. Marco fell into step a half-second behind. The green awning building had a front door propped open with a brick. Dante went through without stopping, took the stairs 2 at a time to the 2nd floor, and followed the sound of a raised voice to the 3rd door on the left. He did not knock. The door was unlocked. He pushed it open and stood in the frame. The apartment was small and carefully made, bright watercolor prints on the walls, a child's drawings taped to the refrigerator, a red throw pillow knocked to the floor. The kitchen table was overturned. A man was standing in the center of the room. Lean and sharp-faced, red with the kind of anger that comes from feeling powerless and choosing a smaller target. He had his hand raised. The woman on the floor had auburn hair that had come loose from wherever it had been pinned. She was wearing a cobalt blue blouse and gray slacks. She had one arm raised in front of her face, and she was not making any sound, and her green eyes were squeezed shut. She was, even in this moment, extraordinarily beautiful. The man turned and saw Dante in the doorway. All the red went out of his face at once. Dante did not move from where he stood. He took in the room. He took in the woman on the floor, who had now opened her eyes and was looking at him with an expression that mixed equal parts fear and confusion. He took in the man who was already backing up, already recalculating everything. "Victor Hale," Dante said. He kept his voice very quiet. Quiet was always more effective than loud. Victor's mouth opened and closed. "You know my name," Dante said, "and I know yours. I also know about the money you owe to the Petrov crew on the south side, and I know about the storage unit on Clement Street." He paused. "I know many things. You should think carefully about what you do next." Victor's raised hand dropped to his side. "Get out," Dante said. "Take nothing. Come back for your belongings during daylight hours, and bring someone from your family so that what happens inside this apartment can be witnessed. You can't just—" "I can," Dante said simply. "Leave." Victor looked at the woman on the floor. Then he picked up a jacket from the back of a chair, stepped around the coffee table and walked past Dante through the open door. His footsteps retreated down the stairs. The apartment was very quiet. Dante crossed the room and crouched beside the woman on the floor. Up close he could see a red mark along her cheekbone that would bruise by morning. Her green eyes were watching him with the look of someone who had just run out of the energy required for being afraid. "Elena Sullivan," he said gently. She exhaled. "Who are you?" "My name is Dante Moretti. Your daughter found me on the street." He held out his hand. "She is safe. She is outside with my colleague. Can you stand?" She took his hand. Her fingers were ice cold. He helped her to her feet. She swayed once. He steadied her with one hand on her elbow, and she looked up at him, and something moved across her face that he could not quite read. "She went outside," Elena said softly. "She went down the fire escape." "She did." Her lips pressed together. "She's 5 years old." "She is 5 years old and she walked up to the most dangerous man on this block and grabbed his arm," Dante said, and there was something in his voice he had not planned for, something that felt like wonder. "You have a remarkable daughter." Elena Sullivan looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Moretti, I don't know who you are or why you helped us." "I know," he said. "We can talk about that later. Right now we need to get you somewhere safe." She looked at the overturned table. She looked at the red mark on her own wrist where she had caught herself on the floor. Then she looked back at him and she nodded. Dante Moretti, who had not paused for anyone in 11 years, led her gently out the door. Dante's car moved through the city in silence. Elena sat in the back seat with Cora pressed against her side, the little girl's head tucked under her chin, her small fingers wrapped around Elena's wrist as though she was afraid to let go. The seat smelled like leather and something faintly expensive. The city lights moved past the windows in long liquid streaks. She did not know this man. She knew only that he had walked into her apartment and the most frightening person she had ever been alone with had walked out without a word. She studied Dante sideways in the dim light. He sat in the front passenger seat and had turned slightly to keep her in his peripheral vision in a way that felt less like surveillance and more like he was making sure she was still upright. The tattoos on his neck moved as he spoke quietly into his phone in Italian. His hands on the door were broad and heavy and also tattooed, patterns running across the knuckles in dark ink. "I don't know where you're taking us," she said. He turned. "My family's estate, 15 minutes north of the city. You will have your own rooms. My Aunt Rosa is there. You will not be required to speak to anyone tonight if you don't want to." He paused. "You are not a prisoner, Miss Sullivan. You can leave at any time. But I would ask you to stay until morning, when we can talk more clearly about what comes next." Cora, whose head had been tilted back studying Dante's neck tattoos since the moment the car pulled away, said, "Are those real?" Elena said, "Cora?" "Yes," Dante said. His voice was different when he spoke to Cora. Gentler, with a careful slowness, like he was translating himself into something she could hear without fear. "All of them?" "All of them." "Did it hurt?" "Some of them did. Some of them I don't remember very well." Cora considered this with the gravity that 5-year-olds bring to serious information. "My mom has one," she announced. "On her ankle. It's a flower. She said it hurt but she wanted it to be pretty." Elena felt heat in her face. Dante glanced at her. The corner of his mouth moved in something that was almost a smile. "That's a good reason," he said. The estate was not what Elena had been imagining. She had pictured something cold and stark, all marble and menace. What she found, when the car passed through an iron gate and came up a long curved driveway lined with lit lanterns, was a cream-colored villa surrounded by gardens. In the glow of the exterior lights, she could see roses just coming into season along the front facade. The windows were warm with light. A woman opened the front door before they reached the steps. She was in her early 60s and round and silver-haired, and she was already moving toward them with the particular velocity of someone who has been worrying and was relieved to have something to do about it. "Cosi tardi," she said, and then switched to English mid-sentence. "I have rooms made up. I have soup on. The child must be hungry. Come here, let me see you." This last was directed at Cora, who was already taking Rosa's hand with the casual confidence of someone who has never met a grandmother she didn't get along with. "I'm Cora," Cora said. "I know, Piccola. I'm Rosa. Are you hungry?" "Yes. I lost my shoe." Rosa looked down at Cora's mismatched feet and then up at Dante with an expression that held about 11 different kinds of reproach, all of them loving. "We'll find her another shoe," Elena said quickly. "She has some at the apartment." "We will find another shoe," Rosa confirmed, patting Cora's hand. "Tonight we eat and sleep. Tomorrow we solve everything else. She turned to Elena. Her eyes were dark and sharp and very kind. You are Elena. Yes. You're safe here. Rosa said it simply, without ceremony, the way people say things that are simply true. Come inside. Elena looked at the open door, at the warm light spilling out, at her daughter who was already telling Rosa about the fire escape and the one shoe. She looked back at Dante who was standing a few feet away giving her space she had not known she needed. Thank you, she said. It felt entirely inadequate. Get some rest, he said. There's nothing to solve tonight. Elena Sullivan walked through the door of the Moretti estate, and something in her chest, something that had been clenched so tight for so many months she had forgotten it wasn't supposed to feel that way, loosened by a fraction. Cora's voice floated back from inside. Rosa, do you know what my mom's favorite color is? It's cobalt blue. Like her shirt. She has a red dress too. Elena closed her eyes for one moment. Then she followed her daughter inside. The guest room Rosa showed her to was on the second floor, overlooking the garden. It had cream walls and a wide bed with deep blue and gold linens. A door connected it to a smaller room where Cora was already climbing onto a bed twice her size with something approaching reverence. There are toothbrushes in the bathroom, Rosa said. And a robe if you need it. I will leave soup outside the door. She touched Elena's arm very gently. Sleep. Nothing bad comes through these walls. After Rosa left, Elena sat on the edge of the bed for a long moment and listened to the quiet. Actual quiet. No footsteps in the hall. No raised voice on the other side of a wall. From the next room, Mom. Yes, baby. The bed is really fluffy. I know. Mom. Yes. I knew he would help us. Elena pressed her fingers to her mouth. Go to sleep, Cora. He has a lot of tattoos. I noticed. Mom. They look like a map. Elena listened to her daughter's breathing slow and even out, and she sat in the cream-colored room and thought about a man on a street corner, looking down at a small girl who had grabbed his arm with complete certainty, and she thought about the particular expression on his face in that moment, something raw and instant and entirely unguarded that had come and gone before she could fully name it. She did not sleep for some time. But when she did, there were no sounds in the hallway. And there was nothing to wake her up. Morning arrived through the garden windows with the particular gentleness of a day that has decided not to press. Elena lay still for a moment after waking, cataloging the unfamiliar sounds. Birdsong, a distant lawnmower, Cora's voice coming from somewhere that was not the next room. She sat up fast. Rosa appeared in the open doorway before Elena could untangle herself from the covers, carrying a tray with coffee and a plate of small pastries. She is in the kitchen, Rosa said, unruffled. She has already eaten 2 brioche and she is teaching my housekeeper a song she invented about a turtle named Gerald. Elena let out a breath. I'm sorry. I should have. There is nothing to apologize for. Rosa set the tray on the bedside table and sat in the chair near the window in the manner of someone who had decided a conversation was happening. Coffee first. Elena drank coffee and looked out at the garden. In daylight it was extraordinary. Roses everywhere, white and coral and deep red, and beyond them a stone path that curved toward a smaller garden with a fountain. The morning light was clean and cool. How long has he lived here? Elena asked. Dante was born in this house, Rosa said. His parents lived here. When his mother died and his father went to prison he was 11 years old. I moved in to raise him. He has been the head of this family since he was 27. Elena turned to look at her. Should I be afraid of him? Rosa considered this with the seriousness it deserved. He has never hurt anyone in this house, she said finally. He has never hurt anyone who did not hurt someone first. I'm not saying he is a simple man or an easy one. But I have watched him for 30 years, and what I will tell you is that what he did last night, he did because he could not have done anything else. That is who he is. He said he knew the building, Elena said. He knows most of this neighborhood. He has had a stake in it for many years. Elena nodded slowly. She finished her coffee. I need to think about what to do next. Victor won't just disappear. He will not come here, Rosa said simply. Nothing comes here that Dante does not permit. I can't stay here indefinitely. Nobody is suggesting indefinitely. Rosa rose from the chair and smoothed her skirt with the brisk efficiency of someone who considers most problems solvable with enough organization. I am suggesting today. Perhaps tomorrow. Long enough for the bruise on your face to stop looking like that and long enough for you to think clearly. She paused at the door. Dante would like to speak with you this afternoon if you are willing. He will not push you. Elena touched her cheekbone. She had not looked in a mirror yet, Tell him I'll be ready at 2, she said. She was not entirely ready at 2, not emotionally, but she was dressed. A crimson blouse Rosa had left folded in the guest wardrobe with a note saying she kept spare clothing for visitors, paired with dark trousers. Her auburn hair was brushed and she had found concealer in a small toiletry bag that had also appeared without explanation. Dante was waiting on the terrace. He had changed from the previous night's suit into a dark blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up to the elbows, and in daylight she could see his tattoos with a clarity that the dim light of her apartment had not allowed. Both forearms were covered, geometric patterns and Italian words, and a rose with no stem on the inside of his left wrist. His neck carried something that curved up behind his ear. His face was angular and clean-shaven and in this light, looked younger than she had expected. He stood when he saw her. Habit, apparently, because it was immediate and apparently unconscious. "How are you feeling?" he said. "Better than I expected to," she admitted. "Your aunt has a talent for making things seem manageable." "She kept me alive when I was 11, he said. "She can manage most things." They sat across from each other at the terrace table. Cora was visible in the garden below, running in wide circles around the fountain with an energy Elena had not seen from her in months. "She's been tense," Elena said, watching her. "At home. I thought I was hiding things well enough." Her voice stayed even, but it cost her something. "I wasn't." "Children understand more than we want them to," Dante said. Elena looked at him. "Is that from experience?" Pause. "Yes," he said. She waited, but he did not elaborate yet. "I want to ask you about what happens next," she said. "Victor won't just disappear." "No," Dante agreed. "He won't. But there are ways to handle this that don't require anyone to be hurt." He looked at her directly. "I want to help you. I am asking for your permission to do that." Elena studied him, the careful stillness, the hands folded on the table, the dark eyes watching her with a patience she had not expected. "Why?" she said. He looked at the garden where Cora was now attempting to sit on the edge of the fountain. "Because she grabbed my arm," he said. "And because she didn't hesitate." Elena looked at her daughter. She thought about the fire escape, the one shoe, the complete and uncomplicated certainty that had sent a 5-year-old out a second-story window to find help in the dark. "She has never been afraid of the wrong things," Elena said softly. "No," Dante agreed. "Neither has she been afraid of the right ones." They sat in the garden light for a while longer, and Elena let herself, for the first time in a very long time, not have a plan for the next 5 minutes. It felt unusual. It felt, in spite of everything, like something close to relief. The terrace became their place. It was not decided consciously. It was simply where, on the second evening, Cora dragged a blanket outside and announced she wanted to look at stars, and where Rosa appeared with 3 cups of chamomile tea and then vanished again in the way she had of managing things without appearing to manage them, and where Dante came and sat on the stone steps rather than the chair, and where Elena pulled her knees up and wrapped her hands around her cup. Cora fell asleep on the blanket between them with the speed and completeness that only small children can manage, one hand curled under her cheek, her dark curls spread around her in the soft night air. "She trusts easily," Dante said quietly. "She trusts correctly," Elena said. "She's wrong about people sometimes, but she figures it out fast. Faster than I do." He looked at Cora for a moment. Something in his expression was very careful. "Tell me about your mother," Elena said. He was still for a beat. Then, "Rosa told you. She told me she moved in when you were 11. She mentioned your father went to prison." Elena kept her voice level and gentle. "You don't have to." "No." He looked at the garden. The lanterns along the paths were lit, small golden pools of light. "I want to. I think I've been waiting a long time to say it to someone who would understand why it matters." He was quiet for a moment, assembling something. "Her name was Carmela," he said. "She was kind in the way that makes people think they can take things from you. My father was not a cruel man by design. He was an absent one, always moving, always building the business, and the business was not the kind that left time for a family. When he was home he was distracted. When he was distracted he was impatient. When he was impatient—" He stopped. He looked at his hands. "I was 7 the first time I understood what was happening," he said. "I was 8 the first time I tried to step between them." He looked at me and I could see that he knew he had done something he couldn't undo, and he walked out of the house and he didn't come home for 3 days. He paused. "That was almost worse. The walking out." Elena said nothing. She knew the specific silence that was needed here. "When I was 11 she got sick," Dante said. "Nothing to do with him, just her heart, just something that had been wrong for years without anyone catching it. She died in February. My father was arrested in April. And Rosa came. He looked sideways at Elena. I have spent 27 years building things so that nothing like that could happen to anyone near me again. And yet you're still building things for other people, Elena said. Just in a different way. He looked at her with something surprised in his face. You drove away someone who was hurting us, she said. You gave us safe rooms and breakfast and Rosa. You didn't have to do any of that. You did it because a little girl grabbed your arm and you recognized something in that. I recognized everything in that, he said, so quietly it was almost only for himself. Elena looked at her daughter's sleeping face, at the peaceful way her small body had let go of the day. Victor was not always like that, she said. Or he was, and I didn't see it until we were already deep in. I'm not making excuses for myself. I know what I missed and I know why I missed it. But Cora's father left when she was 2, and I was trying so hard to give her a stable home, and Victor seemed like stability. He seemed like what you needed him to be, Dante said. Yes. She exhaled. Until he didn't have to anymore. They were quiet for a moment. He owes money to people who are not patient about being owed money, Dante said. That's made him more dangerous than he would otherwise be. Frightened people press down harder on whatever is beneath them. I know, Elena said. I could feel it getting worse over the last 2 months. I'm going to take the pressure off, Dante said. Not by hurting him. By making it so there's no advantage to him being near you. He paused. I know people in law enforcement. People who owe me considerations. There are multiple legal complaints that could be filed against Victor Hale that would redirect his attention entirely. Elena looked at him. That's within what you can do. Yes. She thought about it. Okay, she said. The word came out smaller than she intended, loaded with more trust than she had planned to give. Dante heard it. She could tell by the way he looked at her, with something careful and steady in his face. Thank you, he said. She almost laughed. I'm the one sitting in your garden. You are the one who decided to trust me, he said. That's not a small thing. I don't take it lightly. The stars came out one by one over the garden. Cora sighed in her sleep and shifted closer to the warmth between them. By the 3rd day, Cora had decided she was in charge. This was not unusual. Cora had been in charge of most situations since she was approximately 3 years old, and she adapted to new environments with the cheerful confidence of someone who has simply never been told the world is something to be afraid of. She found Dante in his study at 8 in the morning. Elena, who had been looking for her daughter for 15 minutes and found her missing from the garden and the kitchen and the morning room, traced the sound of Cora's voice to the study door and arrived just in time to hear, "What's this one?" She looked through the half-open door. Dante was sitting behind a desk covered in papers and a laptop and 2 phones, and Cora had climbed onto the arm of his chair and was pointing at a tattoo on the inside of his right forearm. He was looking at her with an expression Elena had not seen on his face yet, completely unguarded, faintly baffled, and something that was trying very hard not to be delighted. That one is a compass, he said. What's a compass? A tool for finding which direction you're heading. Like when you're lost? Yes. Like when you're lost. Cora studied it. Do you get lost a lot? Pause. I used to. But not now. Less, he said. Cora pointed to another one higher on the forearm. This one. That's a Roman numeral. A number. 11. Why 11? He was still for a half-second. Because that was an important year. Cora accepted this with the pragmatism she brought to most information that was above her current grade level and moved on. And this one? A rose. Like the ones in the garden? Similar. My mom likes roses. She said this with the casual certainty of someone who has just revealed significant intelligence. She says they're hard to grow but worth it. Elena in the doorway went very still. Dante looked up then and found her. She expected him to look caught or to straighten up or to put on some professional distance. Instead he looked at her the same way he had been looking at Cora, like she was something he had not anticipated and did not entirely want to solve. Breakfast is ready, Elena said from the door. We're doing tattoos, Cora informed her. I can see that. There are a lot of them. I know. Dante was already rising from the chair. We can continue the inventory later, he said to Cora, and the seriousness with which he said it, as though this were a genuine appointment that deserved keeping, made something warm move through Elena's chest. After breakfast, Cora demanded a story. This was how she operated. She identified something she wanted and she requested it directly. She had never learned to be indirect about wanting things, which Elena considered one of her finest qualities. I don't tell stories, Dante said. Everybody tells stories, Cora said. Not me. Why not? I don't know any. Cora looked at him. She had a particular look she used when she suspected someone was not being their fullest self, and she turned it on Dante now with considerable effectiveness. You know the tattoo ones, she said. Tell me those. Something happened to Dante's face. Elena watched him sit down on the garden bench with her daughter climbing up beside him, and she watched him begin, slowly and with the particular care of someone unaccustomed to this specific kind of trust, to tell Cora the story of the compass, about a boy who had needed to find his own way before GPS existed, who had been given the tattoo on his 25th birthday by an old man in Naples who said it would always point him toward what he needed to find. Did it work? Cora asked. Dante looked across the garden to where Elena was sitting with a book she was not reading. I think it might be working now, he said. Cora nodded, satisfied. Tell me the next one. Elena turned a page she had not read and listened to the deep, careful voice of Dante Moretti tell her daughter about the things inscribed on his skin, and she thought about what it meant to be someone whose history had written itself on the outside of his body so that it could not be hidden, and she thought that she was not afraid of him. She had not been afraid of him since the first night. She was beginning to understand that what she felt instead was something considerably more complicated, and considerably warmer, and she was not yet ready to name it, but she was not running from it either. Cora's voice rose again from the bench. This one. Tell me this one. And Dante's low, careful voice said, that one is for a promise I made to myself a long time ago. What was the promise? A pause long enough that Elena looked up from her book. That I was going to build something worth keeping, Dante said. Elena looked at him across the garden. He was already looking at her. She looked back at her book. But she was smiling. She heard the phone buzz 3 times before she looked at it. She was in the kitchen with Rosa on the 4th morning, learning how to make a sauce from scratch in a way that had nothing to do with a jar and everything to do with the patience of someone who had made it 10,000 times and knew where all the shortcuts stopped being shortcuts. She looked at the screen. The message was from a number she did not recognize, but she knew it was from Victor because of the particular flavor of it. Sweet on the surface with something hard underneath, the way certain fruit looks perfect and tastes of nothing. It said, I know where you are. I just want to talk. You know how I get when I feel ignored. Elena set the phone down on the counter. What is it? Rosa said. Elena turned the screen toward her. Rosa read it. Her face did not change, but something behind her eyes went very still in the manner of someone who has been managing crises for 30 years and is simply calculating the next step. Come, she said. She led Elena to Dante's study, knocked once and opened the door. Dante was on the phone. He took one look at Elena's face and ended the call. She handed him the phone. He read the message. He looked at it for 4 seconds. He set the phone down on the desk with a quietness that was in some ways more forceful than if he had set it down hard. Where is Cora? He said. Garden, Rosa said. With Nico. He's been watching her. Dante nodded. He looked at Elena. Are you all right? I will be, she said. He always does this. He waits until he thinks you've started to breathe again. Yes, Dante said. He would. He picked up one of his own phones and typed a message. I'm going to need you to tell me everything you know about Victor Hale. Bank, employer, family, addresses he uses. Not for any purpose that would hurt him. For the purpose of building a legal case that makes him too occupied to think about you. Elena sat down in the chair across from the desk. How legal is this case going to be? She said. Completely, he said. I have a contact at the district attorney's office. I have been sending him gifts for his children's school fundraisers for 6 years. I have also sent him, through appropriate channels, 3 separate case-building packages on subjects he cared about. He owes me a hearing. What I give him about Victor Hale will be honest, accurate, and admissible. And you know enough about Victor to build a case? Victor Hale owes money to organized figures in this city. That means I know a significant amount about him already. He paused. He has been involved in financial fraud at 2 previous workplaces. There are also, based on what happened in your apartment, grounds for an assault complaint and an application for a protective order. Elena's hands were folded in her lap. She looked at them. I didn't want to file a complaint, she said. I was afraid it would make things worse. It might have, Dante said. On your own. With my support, the process moves differently. She looked up at him. He needs to understand that there is a cost to this, Dante said. Not a physical one. A legal, professional, financial one. He needs to understand that pursuing you will cost him more than letting you go. He held her gaze. I can make him understand that. Elena thought about the message on the phone. She thought about the months of learning how to move quietly in her own apartment, how to time her route to the kitchen, how to read the specific quality of silence that meant she had 30 seconds to get Cora into the bedroom and close the door. "All right," she said. "I'll tell you everything I know." She talked for 40 minutes. Dante listened without interrupting, and Nico, who had come quietly into the study at some point during the first 10 minutes, sat in the corner and took notes. When she finished, Dante said, "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," she said. "He's resourceful when he's scared." "So am I," Dante said, and there was nothing threatening in how he said it, just simple fact. Elena looked at him and thought, "Yes, I believe you." That evening she sat on the terrace with her knees pulled up and watched Cora sleep through the glass of the garden door, and she thought about what it meant to be on the right side of someone like Dante Moretti. Cora had known. From the moment on the street corner, Cora had simply known. Elena Sullivan was beginning to think her daughter had been right about rather a lot of things. The roses had to be deadhead. Rosa explained this to Elena on the 5th morning as they moved through the garden with small scissors, pinching off the blooms that had gone past their best. It was, Rosa said, not cruelty. It was care. You had to take away what was finished to make room for what was coming. Elena thought about that for longer than was strictly about the roses. "He was not a happy child," Rosa said, clipping a spent coral bloom and dropping it into the basket. "He was a very determined one. Very serious. Even at 11 he had this quality of someone who has decided they are going to handle everything themselves and simply needs to figure out how." She paused. "He needed to grieve for about a year and instead he built things." "What kind of things?" Elena said. "First, small ones. He organized his school. He started managing the building maintenance accounts for this estate when he was 13 because the bookkeeper was useless and he could see it. By 15 he was running small business negotiations for the family." Rosa tilted her head. "He was never meant to become what he became. His father wanted him to study law, to be the legitimate face of the family. But then his father went to prison and there was no one else. And he took it. He took it because there was a household full of people who needed someone to take it. Because there were families who depended on the Moretti name for their income and their safety. He was 27 years old and he walked into a room full of men twice his age and he told them what was going to happen." Rosa smiled at a rose that had not yet opened. "He has been trying to find a way out ever since." Elena looked at the house. At the cream facade with the roses along it, and the windows she had come to know. "He hasn't looked for a way out," she said. "He's looked for a reason." Rosa was quiet. "You're telling me we're the reason," Elena said. "I'm telling you that he has not laughed in this garden in 4 years, Rosa said. "I'm telling you that he spent 3 hours yesterday choosing which of his legal contacts to call on your behalf. I'm telling you that he stood outside the door of the room where your daughter was sleeping on the second night, not because he was checking on her, but because she had left the door open and he could hear her breathing and he had not heard a child breathe in this house in a very long time." Elena put down her scissors. "I don't want him to change because of us," she said carefully. "I don't want to be someone's reason to be different. That's its own kind of pressure." "No," Rosa said firmly. "I'm not saying that. I'm saying he was already changing. He had already been looking at the organization and asking what comes next. He has hotel properties. He has restaurant interests. He has real estate." She looked at Elena. "He has been sitting on a legitimate business empire for years and he has not built it because he did not see the point." A door opened on the upper terrace. Dante came out with a cup of coffee and stopped when he saw them both looking up at him. He raised the cup in a slightly awkward greeting. Elena raised her scissors. He almost smiled. That afternoon Angelo Ricci came to the estate. Elena was in the library and did not see him arrive, but she heard the tone of the meeting through the closed door of the study. Raised voices, one precise and cold in a way that made the hair on her arms rise, and another that was low and measured and immovable. It lasted 20 minutes. She heard the front door close. 20 minutes later, Dante came into the library. He was not visibly upset, but his jaw had a set to it that she had learned to read as controlled frustration. "Angelo Ricci is my consigliere," he said. "He has been with the family for 15 years. He does not want things to change." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I had already made my decision. I told him to think carefully about whether he wanted to be part of what comes next or not. And he chose not." He exhaled slowly. "I will give him a fair settlement. He will leave with more than he arrived with. It will not be pleasant, but it will be clean." Elena looked at him. "You were going to do this anyway," she said. "The going legitimate. You were already moving that direction." "Yes," he said. "You accelerated it." Cora did. He looked at her steadily. You both did. Elena did not look away. Be sure, she said. Be sure because you want it. Not because of us. I am sure, he said. I have been sure for longer than you've been in this house. I just needed to stop pretending I wasn't. He set down his coffee cup. I want to tell you what I'm planning. I want your opinion if you're willing to give it. Elena settled back in the chair. Tell me, she said. He told her about the hotel properties. 7 buildings across 3 cities, legally owned, sitting at various stages of development. He told her about the restaurant interests and the real estate holdings and the construction company that had spent 15 years doing government contracts. You have more than enough to build something extraordinary, she said when he finished. She said it simply, directly, the way she said things when she meant them completely. Dante looked at her for a long moment. I know, he said. The diner was on a corner 12 blocks from the financial district. It was not the kind of place Dante Moretti usually sat in. Yellow booths, a laminated menu, coffee that came in a thick white mug without anyone asking if you wanted it. He had chosen it specifically because it was ordinary and public and could not be mistaken for a threat or a summons. Nico sat at the counter with a newspaper and a clear line of sight to the door. Dante sat in the corner booth and waited. Victor Hale arrived 7 minutes late, which was a dominance tactic that stopped working the moment he saw Dante already there and already comfortable. He slid into the opposite seat and arranged his face into something calculated. I wasn't sure you'd come, Victor said. I'm not in the habit of canceling meetings, Dante said. The coffee appeared. Dante waited while the waitress moved away. You've been keeping Elena from me, Victor said. Elena has been staying somewhere she feels safe, Dante said. I haven't kept her from anything. She needs to come home. Dante looked at him. It was a particular kind of look. He had been practicing it since he was 27 years old, standing in rooms full of men who needed to understand something without being told it twice. It was not aggressive. It was simply completely patient in a way that communicated, without any words, that the person doing the looking had nowhere urgent to be and a very long memory. Victor looked away first. I'm going to tell you something, Dante said. I'm going to tell you once and I need you to hear it fully. He opened the folder that had been sitting face down on the table since before Victor arrived. This is the complaint filed with the district attorney's office on Monday, he said. It includes documentation of your financial practices at your last 2 places of employment. It includes a sworn account of the incident in Elena's apartment, with photographs taken on the night. It includes communication records going back 11 months that document a pattern of behavior. He turned a page. It also includes a protective order application, which was granted this morning. Victor's face had gone through several colors. The DA is moving this as a priority case, Dante said. You have 3 options. You can cooperate fully with the investigation, in which case certain considerations will be extended to you regarding the debt you owe on the South Side. You can contest it, in which case the investigation will expand rather than contract. Or you can leave Chicago. You can't just... I'm not doing anything, Dante said pleasantly. The DA's office is doing it. I am simply the person who brought them the information. Everything in this folder was gathered legally. Everything is accurate. There is nothing here that isn't simply the truth about what you have done. Victor stared at the folder. Someone from the DA's office is outside, Dante confirmed, reading his face. They're waiting to speak with you. How that conversation goes depends entirely on you. Victor was quiet for a long time. He was the kind of man who was most dangerous when he was scared, and he was scared now. But the thing about someone who gets their power from proximity to people who cannot fight back is that when the ground shifts, the power goes with it. There was no one in this diner that Victor Hale could press down on. I'll cooperate, he said finally. His voice was flat. Good. Dante rose from the booth. He left money on the table for the coffee. Elena will not be hearing from you again. I want to be clear about that. Not because I'm asking you not to contact her. Because she will not want to, and she now has every legal mechanism available to enforce that want. Victor said nothing. Dante walked past Nico at the counter and out the door into the morning. He stood on the sidewalk and breathed in the cool air and felt something complete itself inside his chest. A circuit that had been open since he was a boy watching someone leave a room, finally closing. He called Nico. It's done, he said. Then he called Elena. When she answered he said, It's over. He won't bother you again. There was a pause on the line. Then Elena Sullivan said, Thank you, Dante, and the way she said his name without the surname, without the distance, sent something warm moving through him that he had no immediate category for. I'll be home in 30 minutes, he said. He had said home. He had not planned to. He got in the car and smiled at the window, and the driver had the good sense to say nothing about it. He called the meeting for Thursday. It was held in the main dining room of the Moretti estate, at the long table where family dinners had once happened and where, for the last decade, business decisions had been made. 12 men. Men who had known Dante since he was young, who had watched him build what the family had become, who had, in varying degrees, been waiting for this conversation without knowing they were waiting for it. Dante stood at the head of the table. He was wearing a dark navy suit and no tie, and his hands were flat on the table, and he looked at each person in the room for a moment before he began. The Moretti Group, he said, is becoming a legitimate business. Full stop. The room was quiet. This was the specific quiet of 12 people deciding how to respond to something they had been half expecting and had half hoped would not come. He laid it out. The hotel properties, 7 buildings across 3 cities, all acquired over the past 15 years, all legally owned, all sitting at various stages of development waiting for a plan. The restaurant interests, 4 properties that already operated legitimately and simply needed the association with the family business removed from their records. The real estate holdings in the financial district. The construction company that had spent 15 years doing government contracts and could expand its legal operations. We have more than enough here to build a hospitality empire, Dante said. Full employment for everyone in this room and their families. Health benefits, legal wages, retirement accounts. He paused. I know what I'm asking you to walk away from. I'm asking you to do it because what we can build is better than what we have, and because I cannot in good conscience ask any of you to keep doing something that I no longer believe in. Angelo was not in the room. Angelo had already been given his settlement and had taken it without a fight, though not without a significant expression that would serve as his final communication to Dante on the subject. Nico was at the end of the table. He raised one hand. What's the timeline? He said. 6 months to full operational transition. 3 months to begin. I'm in, Nico said. Around the table in ones and twos, heads nodded. Not all of them. 2 men at the far end were already doing the calculation of where they would go and what they would do without the family structure, and Dante could see it in their faces, and he let them make that calculation. Anyone who needs time, take the week. Anyone who chooses not to stay will receive a fair separation with no ill will. The door is open and it will stay open. He looked around the table one more time. This is not the end of the Moretti name. It's what it should have been from the beginning. He said it and believed it. He went upstairs when the meeting ended and knocked on the door of Elena's room. She opened it wearing a sapphire blue wrap dress and holding a pencil, which told him she had been working. She had started sketching interior concepts for the flagship hotel property 2 days ago, after he had shown her the photographs of the space, and she had said quietly, with an expert's precision, that the ceiling height alone was extraordinary and that whoever had let it sit empty for 5 years had been making a significant mistake. She had a background in interior design that she had set aside to work a steadier job when Cora's father left. Dante had not been surprised. It fit exactly with who she was. Someone who saw how spaces worked and what they needed. How did it go? She said. Mostly as expected. Most of them are staying. She studied his face. And Angelo? Gone. Settled. It was civil. He exhaled. It's done. It's actually done. Something moved across her face. Not just relief. Something larger. Dante. Yes. I want to do the hotel, she said. If you'll have me. Not as a favor. Properly. As the lead designer. She held up the pencil. I've been making notes. I have ideas. I know you haven't asked me and I'm not assuming. I was going to ask you tomorrow, he said. I was building up to it. She looked at him. Were you really? I have been thinking about it for 4 days, he said. Rosa said I was being slow. She was correct. Elena laughed. It was a full laugh, unguarded, with her head tipped back, and it moved through Dante's chest like something he had needed for a long time without knowing exactly what it was. All right, she said. Yes. I'll do the hotel. Good. And because he had never been someone who managed to say things at the right moment by plan rather than by accident, I would also like very much to spend more time with you. She looked at him. I know the situation has been complicated, he said. The situation has been extraordinary, she said. And yes. She was smiling. More time sounds good. Cora's voice rose from somewhere downstairs, demanding to know where everyone was and whether there was gelato. They both heard it. They both looked toward the door. Dante's mouth curved. She has excellent timing, Elena said. She does, he agreed. Let's go find out about the gelato. 6 months is enough time to build a life if you know what you're building. The Moretti Group's flagship hotel, the Carmela, named for a woman who had deserved better and who deserved to have her name on something beautiful, opened on a Saturday in late May. The doors were mahogany and the lobby had 20-foot ceilings with a light installation overhead that Elena had designed to look like the inside of a garden at midday, all cool silver and warm gold and the suggestion of leaves. It was full. It was, from the first weekend, full. Dante stood in the lobby and looked at people moving through the space that had sat empty for 5 years and thought about how long he had been waiting to stand in exactly this room. Elena appeared at his elbow. She was wearing a deep emerald dress that set off her auburn hair and the particular shade of her green eyes, and she was carrying a clipboard because she was working, but she was smiling at the installation overhead with an expression he had come to love. The particular satisfaction of someone who has seen something only in their mind for months finally existing in the world. The light is right, she said. It's extraordinary, he said. The original concept was slightly different. The execution is better. Rosa said that too. Rosa has excellent taste. She looked at the clipboard and then back at the room. The restaurant is already booked through the weekend. Nico says the rooftop reservations filled in 6 hours. Dante. She touched his arm. You built this. We built this, he said. She looked at him. Yes, she said. All right. We built this. Cora found them 20 minutes later. She had been given a very important job, which was delivering welcome cards to guests in the 10 specialty suites, a task she had taken with a solemnity that Rosa said bordered on professional. She was wearing an emerald dress that matched her mother's, which had been entirely her own idea and which she had negotiated for over 2 weeks, and her dark curls were pinned back with a gold clip that she had also negotiated for. She held up the empty card basket. Done, she said. All 10. Room 407 has a dog. The Hendersons, Elena said. They had prior approval. He's very small. I held him. She considered this. He liked me. Everything likes you, Dante said. Cora looked up at him with the straight, considering gaze she brought to statements she was evaluating for accuracy. Then she nodded, accepting this as correct. Are we going to the rooftop? She said. Later tonight, Dante said. I wanted to show you both something up there. Elena looked at him. He kept his face neutral. It's set up for guests, she said. I asked Nico to reserve it for an hour. She studied him. He was not particularly good at keeping things off his face when she was looking directly at him, which she had observed early and which he had found he did not particularly want to change. Okay, she said, and the way she said it told him she had figured it out. She let him be surprised anyway. The rooftop at 8 in the evening was lights strung between the planters and the beginning of the Chicago skyline going blue-gold in the long dusk. Rosa was already there, sitting in a chair near the edge with a glass of wine and an expression of someone who has been waiting patiently and is very pleased with how things have turned out. Nico stood near the door. Cora walked to the railing and looked at the city. We can see everywhere, she said. Almost everywhere, Dante agreed. He looked at Elena. She was watching him with green eyes that had stopped being afraid of him somewhere around the 4th day in this house, and that had moved, in the months since, through something he could name now without hesitation. He had been practicing this part. He had written several versions of it and Rosa had reviewed them and told him to stop writing and just say it. He reached into his jacket pocket. Cora turned from the railing at the exact moment and looked at the ring in the box with an expression of complete tranquility, which meant she had known this was happening. Elena, Dante said. She pressed her fingers to her lips. I have not been a simple person or an easy one, he said. I have built things I am not proud of and I have a history that I cannot change. But I know who I am now. I know what I want to build. I know that every day since a small person grabbed my arm on a street corner and refused to be afraid of me, I have been more certain about what I want than I have ever been about anything. He looked at Cora. Both of you, he said. This is for both of you. Cora nodded very seriously. He looked back at Elena. Will you marry me? He said. Elena Sullivan looked at him, and at the ring, and at her daughter who had already taken Rosa's hand with the air of someone witnessing something she had personally arranged, and at the skyline of the city she had been afraid of for too long, and she said, yes. He put the ring on her finger and she wrapped her hands around his and he held them there and the city went gold and then blue and then the lights came on, and Rosa was wiping her eyes and Cora was saying the ring was very shiny and demanding to know if she could hold it, and Nico opened the champagne. They were married 6 weeks later, in the garden of the Moretti estate, under the roses that had been carefully, patiently tended back into bloom. Cora wore coral. Elena wore ivory. Dante wore a navy suit with a rose in the lapel, and his tattoos showed at his collar and his cuffs, and he did not apologize for any of it. Rosa cried. Nico did not cry officially, and the matter was not pursued. The garden was full of morning light, bright and clean and new, and Cora stood between them and held both their hands, and when the officiant said the part about new beginnings, she nodded with complete satisfaction because she had known, from the moment she had decided to climb out a window and find someone on a street corner and grab his arm without hesitation, that this was exactly how things were going to go. She had simply needed everyone else to catch up.